We are going to be learning a method of solving quadratic equations. That's an algebraic method, and it's solving by factoring. But this is what we have to be able to do first. Figure out what would go into each of these blanks. So 3 times what equals 0? 0. And 0 times 6 equals 0, and 0 times 1 equals 0. And this is actually the principle behind solving by factoring. It's called the zero product property. And the zero product property states that if the product of two real numbers is 0, then one or both of the factors must be 0. And this is what's going to allow us to solve by factoring. You need to know the zero product property. So if we take that and have a look at this quadratic, this is a quadratic function, right? Because if we expand it, you can see the x squared there. Well, a quadratic equation, I should say. X squared is in there. It's just x times x. But if we use that zero product property, we can actually figure out what x is equal to. Because what does that tell us about this equation? What does the zero product property tell us there? That x could be equal to 2? Yes, because x minus 2 has to be equal to 0. Either that or what other thing has to be equal to 0? Could be equal to 0. X plus 3 could be equal to 0. The zero product property says that one or both of those factors has to be equal to 0. And if x plus 3 is equal to 0, then x is equal to negative 3.
Or positive 3.
And you solve that just by subtracting 3 from both sides, right, to isolate the x. So we would go minus 3, and end up with x equals 3. Here, if you add 2 to both sides, you'll end up with x equals 2. So there we've solved that quadratic equation. If I graph that quadratic equation, it looks like this. And it crosses the x-axis at, oops, I wrote that down wrong. Negative 3 and 2. So if you were to solve it graphically, type that into your calculator, y equals x plus 3x minus 2, and you get this, and it shows you that it's at negative 3 and 2. But if you know the zero product property, you don't have to do that. Just x equals negative 3 from that first factor, and x equals 2 from the second factor. Solve 3x squared equals 2x plus 5. This is not in factored form, so we can't just apply the zero product property. What do we need to do? Move everything over to the other side is the first step. So it says simplify to put it in standard form. That's the first step of solving by factoring. Putting it in standard form means putting the x squareds first, then the x's, then the constants. So I'm going to subtract 2x and subtract 5 from both sides to cancel those out. We'll get 3x squared minus 2x minus 5 equals 0. And that you'd actually also have to do if you're going to solve by graphing, right? Remember that? Make it equal to 0. So make the whole thing equal to 0. And then we're going to factor it so that we can apply the zero product property. So the second step is factor. Don't worry about the equals 0 part. Just factor that trinomial, 3x squared minus 2x minus 5. To factor that, I think it's going to be this. Once it's factored like that, the third step is to apply the zero product property to find the solutions. And so what that means is take each factor and make it equal to 0 and then solve for x. So 3x minus 5 equals 0 is one possibility, and x plus 1 equals 0 is the other possibility. And the reason is the zero product property. One or both of these things has to be equal to 0 for the product to be 0. And that's why we have to make it equal to 0 first. So this one gives us, if we add 5 to both sides, 3x equals 5. Divide by 3, x equals 5 over 3. Some of you will be able to go straight from that factor to that solution without writing down these steps in between, and that's fine if you want to do that. The other one, subtract 1, x equals -1. And those are the two solutions. If you have a look at the graph, I'll just open it up for a second. There are the solutions, -1 and 1.667, which is the same as 5 over 3. But this is one of the advantages of doing it this way. 1.667 is a rounded answer. 5 over 3 is an exact solution. So solving by an algebraic method gives you an exact solution, whereas solving graphically sometimes gives you a rounded solution.